Hi class, today we are on Saxon Book 4, Lesson 62, and we are going to talk about multiplying 3 or more factors and exponents, and you'll see how those are related to each other. So, for starters, if I gave you the numbers, let's say 3, 4, and 5, and I told you we were adding them, and then I ask, does it matter what order I add these numbers in? You tell me, no, it doesn't matter. Just pick the two you want to add first. Well, if I change these addition signs to multiplication signs, excuse my bell. It's the hazard of filming at school. Okay, so if I change those addition signs to multiplication signs, it still doesn't matter. We're just multiplying instead of adding. So you can pick which two you want to multiply first. I recommend picking the two that are going to make the problem easiest for you. So if I'm looking at these 3 factors and I know that I need to multiply them, in my head I'm saying, hey, 4 times 5 is 20, and 20 times any single digit number is going to be pretty easy. So I would probably do 4 and 5 first. I'd write down a 20, and then I would say, okay, now I have to multiply it times 3. So 3 times 20 is going to give me 60. Now, I would get the exact same answer if I multiplied in a different order. Let's say I just went across, and I said, okay, 3 times 4 is 12, and what is 12 times 5? That's still a basic math fact, so you might be able to say, hey, that's 60. Yes, absolutely. You could also do 3 times 5 and get 15, and then multiply that times 4. You still get 60. With addition and multiplication, the order that we combine these numbers, the add-ins or the factors together, that doesn't matter at all. Now be careful with subtraction and division because it doesn't work quite the same way for those two operations. But if we're combining numbers, we're multiplying, we're adding, do it in any order that you're the most comfortable with because it's going to come out to the same answer no matter what way you put the factors together. So our next example is 4 times 5 times 10 times another 10. So here's our problem. Once again, I want to do it in the way that's easiest for me. It's always easiest for me to save the tens for last because I know the tens trick, which I'm going to tell you about if you don't know it in just a moment. So I'm going to take my first 2 factors again and say 4 times 5 is 20. So now I want to know what is 20 times 10 times another 10. So here's my tens trick. Anytime I'm multiplying, and it doesn't just work with tens, we can do it with hundreds, with thousands, with any 1 and any number of zeros after it. So in this case, I'm saying what is 20 times 10? Since this is a 1, all I have to do is take whatever number I'm multiplying, in this case 20, and I tack a 0 onto the end. So 20 times 10 is going to give me 20 with another 0 at the end. Because I have 1 0 here, I tack on 1 extra 0 to my 20. But now I'm going to multiply that times 10 again. I'll use the same trick. There's 1 0 here, so I'm going to tack 1 more 0 onto my answer, and 4 times 5 times 10 times 10 gives me 2,000. That 2 didn't come out very well. There we go, 2,000. All right, you'll get some more practice with that in your lesson practice and in your written practice. We're going to move on now to something called exponents, and I'm going to write it down for you. This is the word that we're talking about, exponents. And an exponent tells us how many times we are going to multiply a particular number. So, exponents work with something called a base. So let's say 3 is my base, and we'll say 4 is my exponent. You might see something that looks like this with a big number and then a little number up in the corner, and you're going to be like, what is that? I haven't seen that before. This is the exponent. So we'll draw a little arrow there to show that's the exponent. The big number that you see first, that's called the base. And so what we do with an exponent is we say, okay, this is a 4. That means I'm going to multiply my base, in this case 3, 4 times. This is not the same as saying what is 4 times 3. Let me show you what this looks like when we write it out. So we've done repeated addition, and we know repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. Repeated multiplication does not work that way. Repeated multiplication is called using exponents. So we've got the 3, and we're going to multiply it times itself 4 times. So 3 to the 4th is how we say that. 3 to the 4th power is going to be 3 times 3, which gives us 9. And then 9 times 3, which gives us 27. And then we have to do 27 times 3. Ooh, I think I could figure it out in my head, but since I'm a lot older than you and have a lot more experience than you do with math, I think it's probably better for you guys to write that one out. 27 times 3. All right, 7 times 3 gives me 21. 3 times 2 gives me 6, plus the 2 that I carried over is 8. Okay, so now we've done it. We've multiplied 3 times itself 4 times. So our answer to 3 to the 4th would be 81. So you might see a problem like this. This one says to simplify. It might also tell you to solve. But we've got 5, and we read this when the exponent is a 2, we read it as squared, just like when we say square inches or inches squared. But here we have 5 squared. So that does not mean 5 times 2. It means 5 times 5. It's the number, the base, times itself this many times. So here's my 5 squared, plus we read this number when the exponent is a 3, we say cubed. Cubed. So 2 cubed is going to be 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times. So now we can solve this. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 2 times 2 gives me 4, and 4 times 2 gives me 8. So in order to solve this one, I have to figure out what is 25 plus 8. Well, I know 25 plus 5 is 30, and so then I'll add 3 more because I want to add a total of 8. So that gives me 33 for my answer. The other type of problem that you might see involving exponents is they will give you a repeated multiplication problem. In this example, it's 5 times 5 times 5. and they'll ask you to rewrite it using exponents. So remember, this is my base, so I'm going to have 5, and then my exponent is going to be how many times am I multiplying it? 1, 2, 3. So this is 5 cubed, or 5 to the third power. Either way would work to say that. All right, what shape can we think of where we might use exponents when we're multiplying a number times itself? Well, our next example shows us a square, and it says one side of the square is 5 inches. Use the formula for the area of a square to find the area of this square. So we know to find the area, we're multiplying 5 times 5. So I could write that as 5 times 5, but since we're using exponents, I could also write it as 5 squared. Hey, 5 squared is going to give me the area of a square. Coincidence? I think not. There's a reason we use those terms. So 5 squared is 5 times 5, which gives me 25 inches. Don't forget your units. Squared. 25 inches squared for our answer there. All right, next up is our lesson practice. So you can find this in your book on page 402, or I'm going to write it on the board behind me, and you can do it along with the video. So we have A is 2 times 3 times 4. B, 3 times 4 times 10. C, 8 squared. D, 3 cubed. E, 10 squared minus 6 squared. F, 3 squared minus 2 cubed. And then G, I'll put that one down here. G says rewrite this expression using exponents. So it's 4 times 4 times 4, but they want you to write it using exponents, not just solve it, rewrite it. And I'm going to skip H. If you've got the book in front of you, go ahead and solve H as well. But for now, put me on pause, figure these out, and then come back when you're ready to see the answers. So 2 times 3 times 4, I think it's pretty easy to double something. So I'm going to figure out 3 times 4 first. That gives me 12, and 12 times 2 gives me 24. Oh, I definitely want to save the 10 for last. So 3 times 4 again gives me 12, and using my tens trick, I'm just going to tack a 0 on at the end. 8 squared, that means I'm doing 8 times 8. Oh, that's 64. 3 cubed, I'm going to write this one out. 3 times 3 times 3. I have my 3 3's here. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. Now these get a little bit trickier here. What would 10 squared be? That'd be 10 times 10, which is 100. 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36. So then I have to do 100 minus 36, That's going to be 64. 3 squared, that gives me 9. 2 cubed, so I have to do 2 times 2, that's 4, times another 2, that's 8. Excuse me. All right, so 9 minus 8 gives me an answer of 1. And then remember, the directions for this one said to write it as an exponent. So I have my base of 4, and I'm multiplying it 3 times. So 4 cubed, or 4 to the third power. That is the end of today's lesson. Now it's time to start your written practice, which begins on page 402 in your textbook. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.